Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Siri. This is in fact our 8th virtual meeting that we've had, and this evening we're doing it rather differently. We're onto Zoom this time. We've given up using Teams for these meetings, so we're going to use Zoom, and I hope that you will have a good experience watching us if you're on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much for coming. You are able to ask questions, but actually you need to do it before this meeting. Or if you are able to use a chat, then please do send a question to our clerk. We've slightly altered the way that we do things in that we will have questions at the end as well if any are sent in. So please do feel free to ask the Parish Council any question you like. At the moment, we haven't received any requests from any residents who want to join this meeting. Mel, have we got any questions so far from residents for this evening?
None, Chairman.
Thank you very much. In that case, let's see who's here. I know that we have apologies from councillors Marsh, Warrilow and Barrett. So I will introduce the parish councillors to you. You may or may not be able to see them all on your screen. Councillor Speary, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Speary is the Vice Chairman of the Parish Council, and I should have said I'm Helen Douglas and I chair this Parish Council. Right, Councillor McGuinness, are you there? Well, I can assure you he is there, but he's on mute. Are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Forfar?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Bird?
Hello, good evening.
Councillor Mignott?
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Tennant?
Present.
Councillor Coldry?
Yes, I'm here. Present.
Councillor Anderson?
Yeah.
Councillor Higby?
Yes, I'm here, Chair.
Councillor Scott?
Off mute.
Thank you. Councillor Scott was muted for part of that, but I can assure you he is there. Also in attendance this evening, we have our clerk, Mel Stevens, our deputy clerk, Linda Greenslade. We have Joe Carhill, who's our finance officer, and we have Martin Johnson, who is our operational manager. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance this evening. So let's move on then to the agenda, and that's the minutes of previous meetings, which was sent to us as paper A. Are there any alterations that anyone wants to make, first of all, to the full council meeting that was in December, or the finance committee in December, or planning ending on the 11th of December? Is there anything that anyone wants to amend, or any questions anyone would like to ask on that? In which case, is there a proposer, please, for those 3 sets of minutes? Thank you, Councillor Speary, seconded by Councillor Tennant, and all in favour, please show. And we are. Thank you. That's unanimous. Item 2 then, declarations of interest. This is where we have to declare an interest in anything that is on the agenda which we have a personal or pecuniary interest in. For example, it could be something involving a neighbour or something that we are involved in outside of the parish council. Councillor Coldry, you had your hand raised. Could you explain your declaration of interest,
Yes,
please?
I'm a trustee of Fairhope Community Library, and a question is arising under this agenda about the library. So obviously I won't take part in that unless people actually need to ask me questions.
Thank you very much. So let's move on then to item 3, our budget and precept for 21-22. We had a very, very lengthy report here from our finance officer and from our clerk. It's about 23 pages of it. There are also recommendations in there from the Budget Task and Finish group that met. So, Joe, is there anything that you would like to say about this first of all?
Nothing further than what's already been put in that report, to be honest. Yeah, there's nothing further to add.
Thank you. You can see, councillors, that the Budget Task and Finish group is recommending a 0% increase on our precept this year, but we are still managing to maintain the projects that we're doing and introduce some new ones to it. And the Budget Task and Finish group worked long and hard on this. And I do want to thank Mel and Joe and Martin for their input into it, which has been enormous. We've had an awful lot of rewrites, although not as many as we've done in the past. But I think we've come up with a very workable budget. Is there anything that any councillor would like to ask about this proposal before we vote on it? So I'm looking at all the councillors on my screen and there are no questions. In this case, as chair of that committee, I will propose that we accept report B for the precept for next year, which is a 0% increase. And all the recommendations are set out in that report. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Speary. And all in favour, please. And thank you, we are unanimous in that one. Finance report, which was report C, which has been circulated to councillors. Joe, as our responsible finance officer, do you have any updates that you would like to give us?
Really for members is we have received £70,000 from Eastleigh Borough Council in the month of December, and that was for the Woodlands play area, but there is an enforcement period up until probably the end of February, so that money won't be spent straight away, but it's likely that what I'll do is create an earmarked reserve code, and then that money can go into that code. So it's just to make you aware that we have received the money, but it won't be spent straight away.
Thank you very much. That's heartening to know that we'll be able to crack on as soon as we're allowed to, which I think is a little way off yet. Any other questions for Joe on the finance report? Can I note then that we, can I propose that we note this report then and agree on the backs payments? Thank you, Councillor Caudry. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. That was unanimous. So let's move on then to Fair Oak Library and the building, which was report D. Now this is, Mel, you've been working on this significantly, haven't you? Because the idea at the moment is that the parish council was looking at the state of this building to decide whether or not it was a building we felt able to take on as a community asset. And so that's really what Mel has been tasked to do. The community library, which is being led by Councillor Caudry, is a separate thing and is not connected to the parish council, other than Councillor Caudry is a councillor. But we're looking at the building at the moment. So that was report D. So Mel, would you like to take us through it, please? Because it's quite an important piece of writing for us.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We have undertaken extensive investigation with regards to the building itself. Both the operations manager and myself undertook a site visit back in November, and we were lucky enough to be able to instruct a surveyor, and he had undertaken a site visit in December and submitted a report to us in December. Now, whilst there weren't any immediate concerns regarding the building, it is worth noting that due to the age of the building and the fact that it has a flat roof, it's clear that we will have to take into consideration ongoing maintenance costs with regard to the building. With regard to the issue overall, that is whether the council decides to take on the freehold transfer of the building. In essence, there are two issues here. It's firstly whether the council wants to take on the transfer of the building from HCC, and then the second element to that, if it does decide to, would be the arrangement that the parish council has with the community interest group, or CIO, sorry. It's worth noting that with regards to the acceptance of the transfer, Hampshire County Council themselves haven't actually proposed a direct transfer from itself to the CIO. Now, you can read various things into that. Presumably it's because Hampshire lack confidence in CIOs or their power to maintain buildings, and putting financial pressure on local charities. So in considering that same issue, the parish council, whilst wishing to safeguard an important and worthy community asset, it must consider all the risks and liabilities, which I've hopefully clearly set out in the report, and most notably being finances. And it's worth pointing out again that on that issue, the parish council had initially put in a maintenance budget of £5,000, which it subsequently has had to increase to £7,000 following advice from the council's operations manager. The way we made up that 2,000 shortfall was to reduce the community events budget for next year. So the council will need to keep an eye on any annual
Mel, can I stop you right there, please, because you froze at the most crucial point, and I think we need to go backwards. So the last thing that we heard was that the budget was originally £5,000. So could you start from there, please?
Sorry, Chairman, I apologise for my internet connection. Yes, so the council had originally put an indicative budget of £5,000 for the maintenance of the library building. However, following advice from the council's operations manager, we've had to increase that to £7,000. The way we've made up the 2,000 shortfall is to reduce the community events budget for next year. So in future years, the council will need to keep an eye on the annual maintenance budget, because it will likely to increase given the age of the building, which is one of the reasons why, as officers, we've suggested that we undertake a community survey to put that out to residents. I think I've kind of clearly outlined all of the pros and cons to accepting the transfer of the building. So I'm happy to take any questions on the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Camera off, that might help. And could you start that paragraph again, please? No, it would seem that Mel can't start that paragraph again. Are you with us, Mel? I'm very sorry, we seem to have lost our clerk. So let's see if we've got any questions from councillors, first of all, that hopefully myself or, oh, no, Mel's back. She's back. The joys of technology.
I'm so sorry, Chairman. As I said, my internet is very poor. I don't know where you got to in that spiel, but happy to take questions from members, if I can.
I think that's probably easier. So members, questions about this, because we do need to make a decision this evening about whether or not we are going to take on this library building, which doesn't always have to be a library. However, it's a community asset. So it is important that we really have a thorough discussion about this. Councillor Bird.
Do we have any indication at all what kind of terms Hampshire County Council might impose or try?
Yeah, that was a very good question, Councillor Bird, and it's set out in the report as an Appendix 1. The county have... I think everyone's frozen, so...
whatever condition it's in, and we will have to enter into a covenant which binds us that this property can only be used for community ancillary uses. So we're not able to knock it down when we get bored with it and build a house. We can't do that. It is transferred as a community asset, and that is all it can be. But it doesn't have to be a library. It can be anything for the community. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
That is in the agreement, and in the paperwork that we had, it's titled Appendix 1. Who else has a question, please? Right, Councillor McGuinness.
Can you tell me what will happen when the building becomes decrepit and requires to be rebuilt or knocked down or something? If we're obliged to keep it or what?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll answer this because I don't know whether Mel is on this call or not. It is up to us. We've got a condition report of that building, and it's not falling down about our ears, even though it might be a bit tatty inside and there are a few issues with it. It certainly isn't doing that. And this parish council, I am quite sure, would never let it fall into rack and ruin. We would repair it when and if it needed repairing. We know eventually it will need a new roof, for example. So we wouldn't let that happen. So I'm reasonably confident that that will never happen to this building. It's not suddenly going to collapse around our ears. And if it did need extensive repairs in the future, then we would just have to budget for those. I don't think there's anything else much we can do. We can demolish it, but we can't sell it and put a house on there and make money. It has to be for community use. So I suppose in effect we could demolish it and have a community garden there, but we couldn't sell it commercially. Mel, do you want to add to that?
No, Chairman, that's absolutely right. The land itself does have a covenant on it, which is set out in the report. So we wouldn't only be able to use that piece of land and the building for community use.
Any more questions, please? Councillor Speary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to admit that I'm a bit of a sceptic on all of this. I can't personally see the library system working in the medium or long term. And my concern is what exactly could we use this building for if the library system doesn't work? We've had no investigation into that as far as I know. We know that it's too small for a coffee and cake space because we've already been told that. And presumably we could gut the building out, I'm not sure, but I think it might be useful in the absence of anything else to say, to look into what this building could actually achieve for us in the community. It's a great spot, and frankly, a coffee and cake space would have been ideal. Beyond that, I'm not convinced that the building itself, certainly as it is at the moment, even with all the books taken out, that it has really a community use in reality, and it will just finish up as a burden on the council. I'm sorry to be in misery on this, but I think we need to look at what we're going to use it for, what we could use it for realistically, if sometime in the future the library system fails.
Thank you. Mel, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Councillor Speary, does raise some really good points. Accepting the transfer of an older building, it is a risk, and you have to consider that. I would advise you as members to think about the usage of that building moving forward. I have been working with the volunteers and Councillor Caldry, and they are well aware that the success of the offer down at that building depends on them as volunteers. It depends on the funds that they manage to raise. It also depends on the evolution of the offer down there. Clearly, just having a library in the building is not sustainable. That's one of the reasons why we're having the conversation here today, is because the footfall was so low that Hampshire quite obviously made the difficult decision to close the library itself. So success of the offer and the building really does depend on how innovative that community group is in in ensuring the success of the building. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tennant.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, actually, Phil bit me to the post because he's asked more or less the same question that I was going to ask. We make the decision at next month's full council. I think it's quite important. Well, it's very important that we understand what options we have. But it's the response from the residents of what they'd like us to do with that building. And once we've decided what we'd like to do with that building, then we have to work out what the finances are in terms of the income from that building. So yeah, I am more or less, well, I am agreeing with what Philip's just said, but adding that depending on the choice that the residents decide on, depends on the income, and therefore our decision depends on that income.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Tennant. The idea actually is that there is no income for us from that. It will be let on a peppercorn rent to a community group, whoever that community group is. So there will be no income, but the let will be on a full repairing lease. So those people, whoever it is who rents it, in this case we're talking about a community library, are responsible for maintaining it to the standard that we require it to be at. So we are literally taking on the building and then making it good to start with, and then we'll be passing it on to a community group. Mel, did you want to say something there?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. I think what we need to make clear is that if the council does decide to accept the freehold transfer of the building, it then needs to consider how its relationship with the community interest group. I think the feeling of that charitable group was that it would be a non-repairing lease, so the maintenance of the building would fall on the parish council, hence the reason why we've set a budget of £7,000. So that would be in our precept moving forward, and would likely to increase year on year given the age of the building. The other thing to say as a counterbalance to that, going back to Councillor Speary's comment, is that Hampshire County Council have got a grant available to the CIO of £10,000, and I know that the charity will make a bid for that money in order to effectively gut the internals of that building to try and make it more attractive to actually draw people in.
Thank you, Mel. I do apologise. I've misled you that it would be a full repairing lease. For some reason, I thought that it would be once we got it sorted. So apologies for that. It will not be. We will be responsible for it. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The building, it's a solid little building. I don't think there's any fear of it falling down. That's what Hugh's worry there. It's, yes, okay. The roof will need refelting. I don't know if it's been done since I think it was 1970s. This building was built, wasn't it? Now those felt roofs normally had a 20-year guarantee, and that's the maximum you're going to get now. But they're not expensive to replace. I can't. The boiler is relatively new. Everything else seems to be in tickety-boo. So I don't have any problems with it as a building. The only concern is what we would use it for. What would happen to it, for instance, if we don't take this building, and in my mind, it's a wonderful little asset smack in the middle of the village, and I can see maybe in 10, 20 years time, if we didn't buy it, we'd say, oh, I wish we'd got that. You know, how silly will we let something like that go? What would happen to it if we don't take it?
I don't know the answer to that. Mel, do you know what might happen?
That would really be for Hampshire County Council to consider. They may well go back to the the charity and hold discussions with them about a direct transfer over to them, given the fact that the charity is very, very new and in its infancy. It hasn't any budget whatsoever. That would really be for Hampshire County Council to decide what it does with its building. In terms of the actual fabric and construction of the building and its maintenance cost, I think I would quite like to bring our operations manager into that, because he has obviously greater knowledge and has actually undertaken site visits and seen the surveyor's report. So I don't know if, Martin, if you've got anything you'd like to add regarding the building itself.
Martin, what would you like to tell us?
Thank you, Chairman. I think Mel has pretty much said everything there is to do with the building. Just the issue is, I think, it is the age and the fact that the flat roof is there. It is an issue that the council do need to consider. I agree with Councillor Scott that they're not particularly expensive to change over. Should they be left like that? However, I know the clerk has undertaken some preliminary examinations on actually changing the footprint or the layout, and one of those considerations is actually blocking up some of the windows to increase the wall space and putting in some sort of skylight or Velux type window to allow lighting from the ceiling. Now that could potentially have additional ongoing costs. But as Councillor Scott has also reiterated, the boiler is in good use, is relatively new, and the main fabric of the building is quite sound.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything on this subject? Councillor Speary again.
Sorry to come back. This is a bit of a by the by question. I haven't been in it since it was a doctor's surgery, so I wonder how many members have, and perhaps a viewing committee, or at least an invitation to go and actually look at this building. It might be a bright idea just in this moment.
It would be a bright idea, but sadly it's closed and we can't gain access to it. The only people who can gain access is Mel and Martin if they want to do something with a professional looking at it. Otherwise, sadly, it's a closed building. I suppose we could look through the windows. I was there probably 6 months ago, and it's a nice, warm, friendly building, a bit dated. It's got metal windows, crystal windows, but it's a really nice community space, and I think it would be a huge shame if we did not get it for the community. The library group may prosper, it may wane, it may just be middling of the road and keep going, but either way it would still be a community asset that could be used. Other groups might want to join in, and I don't know, they might run a knit and natter group there because that was very popular when the library was going, or things during the holidays for school children to go to, or readings out loud. I don't know. I'm sure they've got lots of ideas. I suspect if we don't accept it, it's likely to be demolished and a house or a flats or something put there on its site by the county, because they're desperate for money. And if we won't accept it as a community building, I'm not sure that anybody else is going to want to have it. So it's going to be a really difficult one if we don't go for it. And I tend to agree with Des, having been on the parish council a long time, not as long as Philip, but a very long time. We have spent a lot of years looking back saying, if only previous parish councils had, and the last one for that, of course, was Playing Fields, if only they'd done that, and if only, and it would be a shame to miss this opportunity for us. So we really have got to make a decision. The paper that Mel submitted to us has got two options. Option one is we accept the transfer, and option two is we don't. Now, I'm not sure if we have to do that tonight, whether we can ask for more detail and discuss it again in February. But I think we need to give Mel and Martin a really clear steer about which direction we're thinking of going in, so that they can do a little bit more investigation. If it would seem this evening that most councillors do not want to take this on, then we're wasting our professional time in exploring it, because if it went to a vote, it wouldn't get through. So I think we need to express what direction we would like this to go in, although it wouldn't be a formal vote. Martin, our operating officer, wants to add something.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chair. I think I should also let you know that I believe it to be correct that the charity can actually get a grant from Hampshire County Council for improvements down there. Now, I don't want to say the figure. It may be best if Mel can say that, but it's quite a considerable sum to be spent prior to or as soon as the community group takes, or we take ownership or management of the community centre. And so there is some money available from Hampshire for the community group to spend on the building.
Yes, thank you, Martin. I think you might have missed that. Maybe your network dropped. I think Mel mentioned there's £10,000 from Hampshire that will be going to the community library group if they are successful. No, you're on mute, Des. If you could just unmute yourself.
How about now?
That's perfect, thank you.
Okay. I was just thinking about the building. The only thing we don't know about is the insulation. It's a cavity wall construction. We don't know if the cavities were filled. We don't know how much. I think this was built by Bratches, wasn't it? Back in the 70s. I don't know about how much insulation is actually in the flat roof. So that's something that we might have to spend some money on. If it's any help to the parish, I'd be happy. As I'm retired now, I don't have too many calls on my time. Buildings has been my life, my working life, since I was 16 anyway. I'll be quite happy to get involved in overseeing that, and to maybe work out what we do need if we take it on, and put some costs and that sort of thing.
Thank you very much, Des. That's an extremely valuable offer, which I'm sure we will be taking you up on, because the more opinions we have, really, the better. So I think we need to come off the fence and make a tentative suggestion as to the way we are heading on this. So this isn't a formal vote, but I'm going to ask each councillor whether they prefer accept or reject the building. I think that's the way that we need to decide to go. It might be that if we say accept this evening, we ask Mel to do more work and she comes back to us and we decide that we are in fact going to reject it despite having gone on that path. But we do need to make a decision this evening. So I'll start the ball rolling and saying, I think that we should accept. Trevor.
Accept.
Thank you. Hugh.
Accept.
Christina.
Accept.
Colin.
Conditional accept. I see that there's a recommendation 8.2 consultation exercise. Granted, that will probably take too long, but I wonder whether we could actually look a little bit more into other options in case the charity is unable to sustain the use of it.
Absolutely, and that is something that I would be asking Mel to look at, to find out that there are what other ways we could use this building. And this is conditional. We are not bound by this. This is not a formal vote. This is a steer for Mel and Martin to move on. Bruce. Oh, sorry, Colin, I interrupted you.
I was just going to say that the size of the building, although it's nice and cozy and all that kind of thing, that does limit the possible uses. And I think we really need to try and bring in every possible use before deciding finally whether to go for it or not.
Indeed, thank you.
It would be great if the charity can succeed, but.
Indeed, we don't want to be left with a white elephant, do we?
Especially as we've just got rid of one of those.
Yes. Bruce.
Yeah, depending on whether there's already a coffee shop in the precinct, I think a coffee shop would be a good idea for the building. I would say accept.
Thank you. Scott?
Accept.
Thank you. Philip,
Sorry, get off the fence and reject.
Trudy,
Accept.
and Des. I think Des said accept. I saw his mouth move. He's nodding. It was accept. Okay, thank you. So it's a very clear steer then, Mel, for the parish now, for us to pursue option 1. So what we're asking you to do now is to look at, very carefully look at what the community library are proposing to go in there. And should that fail, what other uses we could possibly put it under, or what other groups of people might be interested in having this building in the community. I think we've got plenty of costings, but it would be very nice if Martin, you and Des could also have another look at the building. I think the more people that look, the better.
Okay, Chairman, thank you.
Right, anything anybody wants to raise on that one? I think we've probably discussed it fully now. And we'll bring this back to our next meeting. Thank you. Councillor Caudry, we can see you again now if you'd like to. Thank you.
I didn't want to be influencing the discussion. There are staring daggers.
Thank you very much. It's a bit like going out of the room in a council meeting, isn't
It's
it?
exactly the same, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well,
So let's move on then.
Get out of your way, Nick.
Let's move on to our final item then, which is item 6. That was our work programme, which was the paper report E. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add to the work programme? Please, I'm just bringing it up on my screen. There's so much about the library that it takes a long time to get through it. Here we are. Okay. Is there anything anybody wants to add to this? Nothing. Okay. Well, in that case, all that remains for me to say is thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And thank you if there's any public watching us. We really appreciate that. And Mel, has anybody asked us any questions while we've been airing?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, in that case, our next meeting is at 7 p.m. on the 22nd of February. That's our next full parish council meeting, at which we will be discussing the library building once again. So until then, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you to our officers for all their hard work, and good night and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.